What is up, everyone? You are tuning in to the Misfit Athletics Cycle 3 Age Group podcast. Before we get started, we just want to throw a massive shout out to Justin LaSala and Gigi Sabatini, two misfits on the podium. Hunter, you must be doing something right with the programming. They must be doing something right with how hard they work and how they gave it hell. Maybe it's a little bit of both, right? I'll tell you guys, he's being humble. It's a little bit of both. He works extremely hard on this programming to make sure that it is the best that it can be for each age group, through the teens and up through the masters. Hunter, tell me about Cycle 3.
Yeah, so Cycle 3, we're building off of Cycle 2. The theme that we had in Cycle 2 was the concept of just getting a set done. We talk about it a lot with our athletes, both in person and remotely, but what it basically does is eliminates kind of a rest period that you don't need. Instead of going from the rower to the chalk bucket to the pull-up bar, you go from the rower to the pull-up bar, get a set in, and you've basically eliminated that unnecessary rest period, even if you didn't do the set unbroken. I know we're kind of in the nitty-gritty here, but even if you don't do it unbroken, we've eliminated that rest period that over the course of 5, 10, 15 minutes can add a significant number of reps.
We got that curveball in the Open last year where you had to, you could row at a very similar pace and do unbroken wall balls the entire time and have a insanely different score. Everyone's like, oh, I went unbroken. How did you get around and a half more than me?
Yeah.
Like it was, how did I, we had an athlete that did his wall balls over the rower. I watched Cody do it, who had specific footwork. Like he had the rower 45 up against the wall. So we didn't think it was going to get that crazy, and it got that crazy in WOD 1.
Yeah, and it's information gathering. It's we just talked about it in the Cycle 3 podcast, but the ability to know that you can, in fact, get off the bike, do a set of 10 pull-ups, 20 wall balls, and not suffer damaging consequences is huge.
It is.
So the theme for Cycle 3 now is I'm injecting bigger sets of movements that are going to make you question how to attack this. So if a 2 or 3 round workout with
forced information gathering
of 15 muscle ups, I could probably count on 0 fingers the number of people who are going to do that unbroken. It becomes information gathering. How are you going to break that up when it's a set of 33 chest to bar pull-ups as round 1 of the open workout a la 19.5? How are you going to break that up? Can you go straight from the thrusters, get a set in, and then know that you can come back out after having done 33 pull-ups and still continue to work?
And one thing I think that separated us in the past is we really understand that strategy is going to be different for different people. And that's why we're forcing this on you, because 5-5-5 muscle ups works for some people. Whereas for me personally, I'm a fast twitch guy. I got to get 9 done first, because there's no way that I'm going to repeat that. So we don't do those open podcasts where it's 3 of these, take this 1 second rest, 3 of those, 1 second rest, that sort of thing. So if you can combine the mindset of what we're asking for with the programming, that's when you're going to know the answers to all of the questions before the test even happens.
Yeah, for sure. So I still want you, like all of our programs, one cycle builds on the other. I want you using the information you gained from Cycle 2. Hopefully you took that to heart and are now going to apply it into Cycle 3, where your version of getting a set in is get a set, and then you need to do another set of the same movement 2 or 3 more times to get that big chunk of reps done.
Right.
So that's what I want. I'm hoping people will take from this. Probably should have mentioned, if you didn't see the Cycle 3 podcast, this is a 7 total week cycle. You've got your test week, 4 training weeks. We have a primer week after that. So think of it as we're basically giving you that 5th week to really fine tune everything, make sure you're ready to follow it up with Cycle 3 retest. And then we are 10 short days away from the Open. So kind of little housekeeping note there, but we good to go right into the some of the columns here on the sheet?
Yeah, I mean, when you go into the Olympic lifting and the strength work, what are the ultimate focuses that you're looking for them as like the progression from earlier?
It's going to look fairly similar to the MFT and hatchet versions, with a little bit more flexibility in your options, just from kind of a recovery standpoint.
Yeah.
But Texas Method is back. The only variation to that is for age group athletes, your 14, 15-year-olds, and then the 50-plus athletes, or if you just know you're somebody who gets beaten up by 5x5 relentlessly.
Or you squat 7,000 pounds and it's just not.
Yeah, or you have that little young gun strength or old man strength. Like it is a 3x5 at 90%, just for a slight volume reduction. But have the weightlifting cycles and then the timed weightlifting components, again, kind of varying between mandatory and optional, but the theme, like our previous cycle 3s, are timed reps, accumulating that volume, whether it's singles on power snatch and power clean, or kind of the singles squat clean, squat snatch with the monostructural rest that is injected in there, as well as some optional work if you feel that you need some more time below parallel or working on the full Olympic lifts. You have those options, but overall it looks very similar in past years and to the MFT program, but with just a little more flexibility.
Right. And essentially, essentially what we're looking for here is you've gotten stronger, but can we express it in the way that the tests ask for? That's really the biggest thing.
Yep. Yeah. It's the 1 rep max strength is far less of a concern now than the ability to hold on to a barbell.
Right.
Push for bigger sets of push jerks, back squat, whatever. So we are in that higher rep range, similar to the theme that I said, where the Metcon, the rep ranges of the Metcon are higher. The strength work we're bleeding into that strength conditioning,
right,
stamina realm.
So take me into CrossFit now. Actual CrossFit.
Actual CrossFit. Basically, it goes right along with the theme. You're going to do Metcons. They're not in the Metcon column, but they're Metcons. Right. Intervals. Yep. Metcons intervals are bitch work every single day, sometimes twice, or depending on your choices, you could do it up to 3 times if you need the conditioning. But again, the theme there is you're gonna have big sets of movements. The volume is still, I think, in the manageable realm. Like I do every cycle, we track that to make sure that we're not intentionally squatting fucking 8 days a week. So,
right.
But overall, I'm looking for people to accumulate either reps at the end of an interval, or what I've really, really liked to do lately, I liked in cycle 2, and I've kind of continued that in cycle 3, is the intervals that are like no rest interval. So It's like 7 minutes by 3, where you spend like the last like 4 minutes of the interval on a rower, and it's just one of the worst things ever. When then there's no rest, you go right into the next movement. But yeah, I mean, it looks like the open, and for athletes in this category, like this is your qualification method. This is the only way that we know of right now that you're going to the CrossFit Games. So it is CrossFit, with the exception of the extra work, which has some unique elements to it. We're zeroing in on the open. Right.
And when we, transition into the open cycle, it is more of you're kind of finding something out about yourself, because everything's very doable. In this cycle, you're finding stuff out about your body. Like it's the same volume, if it's 50 reps total, but we might ask for 25 and 25 instead of, 5 sets of 10 or 10 sets of 5 or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So always mindful of volume, but we just, these other variables are so important. And if we don't figure them out before, then we're going to be in trouble.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So the bitch work, there are definitely some monostructural. Most of it's optional, just straight monostructural work, and then gymnastic stuff as well. But there's nothing so unique that It's like I said, it's CrossFit.
I think it's important to note from a coaching standpoint that optional never means that it's a throwaway piece. It's our way to let you personalize your programming.
Definitely.
So if you see optional or you hear us say optional and we don't explain it as much as the other thing, it could just be because of the simplicity of it. So the intervals, the longer monostructural, the shorter monostructural, maybe a specific machine versus running, like you need to be able at a certain point in the season, because the masters and teens are transitioning, what we assume is straight into the age group online qualifier. We got to be ready for what you need to work on.
Right.
And that's where that optional stuff comes in.
Yep, for sure. And then the extra work, I'll just hit on that very briefly. It's just got some unique sort of elements. It's mostly like you kind of like in previous cycles, you should know which pieces you need to choose from. It's either a kind of maybe an odd object like wall sit, bear hug, sandbag, bear hug combo, or like a double kettlebell lunges or swings and stuff like that. So just kind of putting it out there like as a different stimulus, but it should be pretty clear when you need to choose either the conditioning or just kind of the extra strength work. It's definitely not, like you just said, definitely not a throwaway piece, because there are a lot of these pieces that can give you a lot of information. But yeah, it's fairly straightforward. And then we will still continue to put the maintenance work in 5 days a week. Rotates kind of between hips, shoulders, midline, just wash, rinse, repeat. I would say that if you're a complete member, or you like to see that stuff ahead of time, it might make sense for you to do either the maintenance work ahead of the training pieces, or even the reason I say complete is because you can see that week in advance and know which maintenance pieces. It's like, oh, this might actually suit me better for this day's worth of training. Right. So I try to keep it in line such that it makes sense. Like there's a lot of shoulder work on a snatch day. There's a lot of hip stuff on a squat day, but some days, and again, depending on who you are, it might make sense to switch that stuff around. So knowing what it is ahead of time might benefit you. If not, it's always acceptable to do that stuff before as part of your warm up, or just after, kind of as your cool down. But it's just that kind of sustaining. It's the small stuff that allows you to train tomorrow is what I'm getting at. So yeah,
that's cycle 3.
I think that's cycle 3. That's pretty much it. If you haven't seen the cycle 3, the full podcast, might enjoy watching that. That's still got some good info in there. A lot of that stuff is still pulled from, or the master stuff is still pulled from, not directly from, but the themes and like the weightlifting stuff. You can get a good feel for it by listening to that. But other than that, masters, get ready for the open.
Yes, absolutely. Oof. All right, masters and teens, that was your podcast for cycle 3. We are coming up on the open October 10th, so it's time to give it hell. Good luck out there.
See you guys.